Welcome into this episode of Coach's Corner. Jordan Woodruff with you, and good to have you along today. We're joined by the Pohai Steppers coach, Kristen Smith, and great to have you, Coach.
Thanks.
And look forward to talking to Steppers like we talk a few times a year.
Absolutely.
So, and big one coming up, Mini
Yes.
Stepper Night, which is always one of the, I think, everybody's favorite
Oh,
events.
yeah. It
I
is
always
fun.
enjoy it.
It is fun.
They're scrambling around trying to figure out where to go. The girls are, kind of hurting them in a way. And,
Yes.
But, man, everybody has a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Clinic actually starts next week on Monday, the 10th. And so we're still signing up if you want to get your child in. And then we perform on Valentine's Day that night. And yeah, it should be a good time. The younger girls perform at halftime of the girls' game, and then the older group will perform at halftime of the boys' game.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun. My girls, it's one of their favorite things to do all year.
I was going to say, we talk about this, it seems like every year, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the girls absolutely love it because I've always said this, teaching makes you better yourself
Mm-hmm.
too. And doing this kind of before you guys start really getting into nationals
Right.
is probably really good because they're teaching. Every once in a while, I'm sure you hear a girl go, you know what, teaching that, I learned a little bit more myself because
Mm-hmm.
you do learn through teaching.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and I think they learn patience, and they learn to kind of think on their feet, and I think it's definitely really good for them just working with kids.
Patience with teenagers,
Oh,
they learn a little
geez.
bit of that.
I learn a lot of that.
I was
Let
going
me
to
just
say,
say.
they're going to learn a lot of that one day for sure. And that being said, you got going. You're doing your, I think you're stepping as far as your kind of performances every basketball game. And I was joking with you off air. My favorite performer was number 8.
Yeah.
But the one thing I want to say is, you guys did a hip hop routine. You do that. You'll do quite a few of those through basketball season. But what always makes me kind of laugh, and I wanted to ask you about this, is when people hear steppers, they're thinking military drill, this type, and you watch those hip hop performances, and it's as good as what you see anywhere. I mean, this is good contemporary dancing. So, what's it like trying to bridge, the military style, but also adding the hip hop side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that is a challenge. Absolutely, it is a challenge. Because while you're tight and you're strong in a hip hop, it's very different than what you do in a military. So we just have to really talk about how we enter moves and how we exit moves and what your body's doing in that move. And I mean, it's very, very cut and dried in a military. It's very different. It's more stylized in a hip hop. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and I understand that because, I mean, I don't dance like that, but like even like couples dancing, like two-stepping, swing dancing, waltzing, it's always been funny because I always am one that's much more, I guess you'd say, structured compared to other people. So
Right.
it's always different for those. And I figure the military style is much more structured.
Absolutely.
Where, you have certain moves you're doing, you're trying to do it all coordinated, but you're a little looser when it comes to the hip-hop style.
Yeah, you definitely are. Like even just transitions between formations with a military, it is very specific. In a hip hop, it's, well, you just kind of let your arms go with your body. I would never say that in a military. I mean, absolutely never say that. But that's what you do in a hip hop. So it may not be exactly the same, but it blends.
Yeah, well, in hip-hop, it wasn't a thing 40 years ago.
No.
So,
It was- no.
so when did the steppers kind of start incorporating this?
Honestly, and okay, so I'm dating myself here. When I was a high stepper, so when I was dancing, hip hop was like not a thing in
Right.
studios or anything. It was kind of like, it was starting to come up kind of like street dancing. But yeah, it was nothing that was taught. Because my background is not that, it probably took us a little while longer to start doing that, but we probably started, I would say, maybe 8 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago.
And is that part of nationals?
It could be, but we are not hip hoppers like as far as
right.
nationals.
But do you see
it could
some?
be.
Do you see some of that? At
Absolutely, and it's crazy good. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I know you have different styles and groupings you have to do. So I always wondered, or if maybe you get good enough, or you have a group of girls that maybe is good enough. I mean, I think some of it depends on your routines on your group of girls, right?
Absolutely. Oh, it does. It definitely does. I really try and fit choreography to what my girls can do. And so, some years I may have some really, really talented turners. And so you see us doing more advanced turn sequences and stuff like that. Other years I may not have that. And so we do things that are more traditional. So yeah, you've got to look at, okay, what's my talent? And I've got to play to that.
Yeah. So mini steppers night's coming up. And like I said, after you get through that part of it, and you'll still have a couple of basketball games, I guess, after, but then it's headstrong, working pretty much completely towards nationals.
Absolutely. Right now we are working on national stuff. In fact, tonight's basketball game, our prop routine for nationals, we're going to be performing that. It's a hoop. But yeah, so we are working on nationals, but we are still distracted with some other things, mini steppers or, a hip hop that we have to get ready for basketball. But yeah, pretty much after mini steppers is done, it will be those 4 nationals routines all the time.
One thing I've never asked, and you have ball games where you have video available, and we talk about all other sports all the time, how video and watching and correcting and all that is a big part. How much does maybe watching tape, as they call it, play into the steppers?
It does. We watch every performance. We have a TV in my senior locker room, and I just plug my camera in it, and I definitely break down each section of the dance, and I'm pointing out individual people of your level's off here, your timing's off here, whatever. I mean, it is a big part of what we do, and it's it's interesting because the girls sometimes will even ask me, hey, will you video us in practice? Because me telling them, hey, your level's off, or hey, you're going on the wrong count, or whatever, a lot of times doesn't sink in until they actually see it. And they're like, okay, I now see what she's talking about. So we'll do that sometimes too.
I think the angle you'd want on your cameras is the angles the judges would look at as well, because depending on the angle you're at can change how you view a certain routine, right?
Absolutely,
so
yes.
I would imagine the camera angles you want most of the time are the same angles that the judges are going to see at nationals.
Right. My husband, bless his heart, he has always videoed for me, and I appreciate it because, good heavens, our daughter's on the team, and so I'm watching her from the back, and he's videoing. So bless her little heart, she doesn't really have a parent that's only watching her, but he gets up kind of a bird's eye view, just exactly like judges do, and videos from the middle and videos the whole team. And
it'd be hard for me to critique, and it'd be hard, I think, as well, even to coach, because I feel like when you watch dance in a group of dance, especially a big number group like you have, you always get fixated on one or two and not the whole picture. And that and I think you have to almost think about that as judges too, because I mean, every girl has a big part, but there's always going to be those 2 or 3 that the eyes migrate to, right?
Absolutely.
And you hate to put any more pressure on anybody else, but really that puts more pressure on them, right?
It really does. It really does. For whatever reason, the human eye always goes center. So even people that are sitting on the edges will watch the center of the routine. So when I'm thinking about formations, I have to think about, all right, who am I putting in the center? And a lot of times, you've got girls that draw focus. They just do. They have a beautiful smile, or they
It could be the way they dancing too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Exactly. The way they dance, they're sharp, they're strong, they have beautiful kicks, whatever. And they're going to draw focus. And we talk about that. And I also talk about the fact that just because you're in the back of the formation doesn't mean that you're not good. I put people in the back to draw focus all the way throughout the formation.
Right,
I have officers that are on the back line, and they've just come to understand, I mean, that is as good as being on the front because everybody can see everything.
Yeah, and this leads to, we're talking tape, we're talking about the focus, but when you're at nationals, the judges, they view the routine just that one time, or do they actually get to see the tape? So,
Just one time.
And would that ever open Pandora's box, or what would that do if they started looking at tape? Because it feels like you'd almost want to be able to look at it because you could focus on certain areas, but at the same time, it's a weird thing as a coach. It may help you one year, or may not the next.
Right, because sometimes and I've judged myself, and I may be looking here, and something happens over here, and I don't catch it because I'm looking at this part. So if you go back and look at the tape, they may catch that. But again, it could be if they were only focusing on a little part, they missed the overall too. So it is kind of a catch-22.
Have you ever watched a routine maybe at nationals and been like, oh my, we messed up so bad, but the judges didn't catch it?
Yes. Yep. In fact, one of the years we won, our military, I was like, what is happening out there? And I don't know. I don't know what the judges were watching, but they apparently liked whatever was happening.
Well, they must have liked it. Was out of sync a little bit. Maybe they thought out of sync meant in sync. I don't know.
Maybe so.
But all right, we talked about the mini step, and you can still get your kids out for that if you want to for next week. And that performance will be coming up next week as well on Valentine's Day in that game there at Robson Fieldhouse. Nationals, though, what's your dates on that right now?
It's last weekend of March, so I think it's like the 28th, 29th.
Okay.
Right in there. Yeah.
Okay, so 28th, 29th. So lots of stuff coming up.
I know.
Lots of stuff. We'll probably talk to you again either before or after Nationals.
Okay.
If it's after, I'm hoping with trophies in hand.
Hopefully. Especially since it's my last one, so yeah. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, make sure. What judges do I need to write letters telling them it's your last one?
Oh, I don't know. Let me get some names. I'll see who's working. Let me get you a name.
All right. And if I don't get to talk to you before again, how is that feeling? Is that setting in? It's going to be like what's it feel like right now being your last one? Are you starting to feel some emotions with that?
Yeah, a lot. It's very bittersweet. I know it's probably time. I know it's probably time to hand it over to someone younger. Fresh ideas, fresh eyes, that kind of stuff. But it's who I am. It's not my job. Being the high stepper coach isn't my job. It's who I am. And so it's very hard for me right now. I'm kind of in that identity crisis. Like, what am I without coaching? I started crying in practice the other day just because all of a sudden it just hit me that this is it. This is it. First semester wasn't as bad because it was first semester. There was always second semester, but now it's second semester and it's hitting hard.
And the girls know it's your last two, and I figure they probably, for them, they want to send you out on a high note as well, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of pressure on them when I don't want it to be, because I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about them, but I hear all the time, this is Miss Smith's last year. We want to do well. We want to win, all that.
And you talk to other dance coaches, I guess you'd say, and steppers, whatever they're labeled at their respective schools. For your longevity of what you've done, it's kind of a rarity, I would think.
It is.
Because there is a tendency to hand it on to the younger ones at a younger age. So for you to be tenured as long as you have, I would imagine you're probably one of the most tenured drill coaches across the country, right?
I probably am. Yeah, I probably am. There was a lady at Olathe East High School, and she probably had her team. She's retired now, but she probably had her team about as long as I did. But I can remember Kathy and I talking. It was Kathy Alcorn, and she and I would talk at camp. We went to camp together, and talking about the fact that people just don't stay with the same team, or they don't stay coaching, or they don't stay at the same school or whatever. And it's kind of a rarity, definitely. I'm really proud of the fact, though, that I've done it for this long and had the success I have had. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Well, and kids change so much.
They do.
And the generations change. I always think the group of kids 4 years ago are quite a bit different than the kids, and that goes on throughout. And we have generation labels, but there's even I'd say sub-generations is kind of what I call it.
I agree.
And to see that many different types of personalities and that many different, a lot of the same, but at the same time the kids, because the times, they change.
Absolutely. And I think the way I coach is different than probably when I started in my career. You can't get away with some of the things anymore that you can get away with when I started.
Yes, we understand.
So I don't know. it's been a long road, and there's been a lot of twists and turns and different things. But overall, I've been very lucky that my girls have always wanted to work hard. They've always wanted to carry on the tradition. So I've been really lucky with.
Well, and you learn the older you get not to sweat the smaller
That's
stuff. Now you got to sweat the small stuff in the routines, get that all right. But as far as like the other stuff that comes up, okay, that's nothing this time. I've dealt with it before.
Right.
When you're a young coach, it's like, oh my word, the world is out of hand. And,
Exactly.
And you make mountains out of molehills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you go into crisis mode, and you're like, I look back and I'm like, that was like no big deal.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm excited for you and excited for the girls. And like I said, we got about a month and a half before it's time for you guys to head to nationals. But Mini Stepper, once again, let people know once again what we can do as far as getting more kids out there if they want to be a part of this.
Absolutely. You can still register at Kyler Construction if you take your registration form to Kyler Construction, and you can also register on the first night of clinic. So if you want to come up to the field house and up to the lobby, we will take that registration. We can't promise a t-shirt if you register the first day of clinic. Just turnaround time for Casey and Legacy Signs, but he does a great job with that, and accommodates pretty much everything we ask of him. So, but yeah.
Yeah,
come out.
Be a part of it. It's always a lot of fun. And like I said, that'll be not this Friday, but next Friday night. So we'd love to see your kids out there if they're eligible to be a part of it. And get out there and support them if you can. Support the Cats on the ball court as well. So, Coach, really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Kristen Smith with us, and that'll do it for today's episode of Coach's Corner. Thanks to Chris behind the camera. Until next time, Jordan Woodruff saying so long, and go Cats.